When I will grow up, I will be army and save Pakistan and destroy India. I will be pilot.
Strong army, whoa, great!
All right, cool. We're back.
Okay, we're recording now. Today it's about 1:40 a.m. in the morning. It is October the 18th, 2020. And this is my second part to my interview with Lampley Milt. Is that what you go by?
Lamprey Milt.
Lamprey Milt, okay. Lamprey Milt. Okay. First of all, I want to start out by saying that I'm sorry we got cut off yesterday. So let's get into Civil War. I mean, I don't know if we were into that before, but do you see the possibility of Civil War erupting from this whole situation going on?
I personally don't think so, because I just was sent an article today that Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Facebook are buying up commercial real estate in New York City, and okay. I've been inclined to think that the situation, as far as us turning into this neo-feudal society, it's linear. It's sped up quite a bit the past year. So like, AOC's Green New Deal is coming to fruition, whether we like it or not. Now, regarding, because most guys want to hear that there's going to be a civil war. I get it. That's what most guys want to hear. That's why you're buying your MREs. That's why you're buying thousands rounds of ammo. That's why you're getting the new scope for your M4. I get it. But the United States of America is nearing a point at which it can no longer be described as a nation state. In the sense that the term is generally used and is evolving into a different kind of enterprise, like one lacking the underpinnings of a common culture, language, religion, or nationality that we commonly associate with modern nation states. So we're now somewhat of an empire, and what we're seeing is heritage America is under full-blown attack, and everything's being under the guise of the marketplace, and we're politicizing everything what we do. The food you eat, the car you drive, where you live, what's your job, are you married, are you not married, are you gay, so everything is now politicized. Mm-hmm. And basically it's pinning everyone against one another. So it becomes very imbalanced when communicating with the other, because it seems that no matter what, someone wants to talk politics with you, and it's really uncomfortable when you start talking about those things. So social, political, and economic forces are basically pulling America apart and driving it towards a bloody war that may fracture the nation into several different countries, divide them along ethnic lines. You'll see riots, gangs, militias, exploding crime rates, mass immigration, rising unemployment, falling wages. These are all factors fueling the war, basically fueling the situation at hand.
Okay, well, what do you think a year from now America looks like? Are we still fucking wearing? I'm a little cynical about this. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. We're going to still be wearing masks, or are we not going to be wearing masks?
We're going to be wearing masks.
Okay, so what is the next progression? I'm a cynical. I think we could be in martial law in the 3 months. Okay, you seem to think this will just drag and drag and drag and drag and drag and drag forever. I don't think it's going to. No. Okay, and what's the structural process in the next 3 to 5 or 1 to 2 years? Where do you see it going?
More. Basically, like more animosity, the tension, more ratcheting up of just this type of feeling that we're like the pent up anxiety, just going to be more of it, where it's just this kind of like permeate sticky humidity feeling that we all got this goo on us, this political new world order goo. And the plan is there's got to be UBI, we got to go green, and we got to shut everything down, and we got to push more corporatization onto the United States, and we want to destroy whatever's left of small businesses. So how are they going to go about and destroy what's left of the small businesses?
Wait, hold on a second. You don't think there's going to be riots in the street or revolution, but it seems that you've got this idea that people are going to be disenchanted. It's going to be a slow process. I don't
Yes.
see it being slow, because we haven't even gotten through the fucking election yet. Where are we at after the election? Who gets elected in your opinion?
Trump will get elected.
Okay, so at this point, what do you think Trump does in the next? What's Trump going to do to stop the riots throughout the major cities?
Nothing.
Are there going to be riots?
Yeah, but again, in Portland and Seattle.
How about Cleveland, Ohio? How about Detroit,
No.
Michigan?
No.
You don't think so? Okay.
Nope. It's all fluff. It's all theater. It's like, what is it in wrestling? The heel. Trump's the heel. Trump's the bad guy, right? So it's just going to continue with where we are today. It's not going to change whatsoever. More people are going to be glued to their TVs. More people will be stimulated through unemployment checks. And when it comes to the marketplace, the free market, what we call the free market, that's gone. We're living in a perfect competition era where Target's no different than Walmart, Amazon's no different than, like, let's say, Etsy. And you're going to start seeing the hollowing out of various various industries. So next will be insurance. The insurance companies are going to be the next to go belly up. And as I stated earlier, they're going to try culling what's left of small businesses through the small business loan and the PPP loans. They'll probably roll out another PPP loan. They'll start throwing more debt at these small businesses. Basically, what they're doing now with guys that make a little bit of money, guys that make like $200,000, $300,000, the government is going to give them like $500,000 loans, $1 million loans, and the guys are going to take this. The entrepreneurs are going to take this, be like, oh wow, you're giving me such a great deal. It's a 1% loan for the next 30 years. I'm going to go out and buy X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, guess what? You still took the loan money. It's not yours. So for whatever may come in another year or two, the banks are going to figure out a way to get those assets from those entrepreneurs down the line.
Right.
And now you have to factor in that, okay, now you culled small businesses. Well, where's everyone going to go and work? Well, you're going to go work for a multinational and be exposed to more social engineering, more woke capital ideas and things of that sort.
You don't believe that there's a plan to get people, you don't even know what Agenda 21 is. I'm assuming you don't.
I know everything there is to know about Agenda 21.
Okay, so you don't
I wrote
believe
my whole
everything...
article, the whole article I wrote for the American Sun is about Agenda 21 and China. China is tied in with Agenda 21.
I don't quite understand what you don't understand, though. That is their goal. And you're saying that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Well, it is. It is. It's the subscription-based boutique economy with the Taco Bell infrastructure.
How about the 500,000 people on the planet that's on the Georgia Guidestones? You don't believe that?
Georgia Guidestone has nothing to do with Agenda 21.
Oh, why wouldn't it?
The two are not correlated. Agenda 21 is UN policy. The Georgia Guidestone is not UN policy.
Are you kidding me? That Georgia Guidestone is UN policy.
It's not.
Okay,
you may think it is. You can think it is, and many people do correlate the two together, but there's no UN policy that says the population has to be 500,000. The UN Agenda 21 policy is more about subverting property rights.
What about heterosexual relations between men and women? Are they all but history?
I would say so, yes. Yeah, there's no, obviously the homosexual agenda is part of it. Transhumanism, which a lot of people like to get lost in the sauce on.
Right. So you don't really.
You can ask me anything you want to know about Agenda 21. I have an answer for it.
Okay. So Agenda 21, as you know, is to get all the people in the rural farm areas they're going to kick them off their land basically and put them in cities. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
And do you see that happening?
Yes.
How do you physically force them off? Through military?
No, through incrementalism. So let's say you live in rural Montana and your population's like 1,000. Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to jack up utility prices. We're not going to fix your roads. We're going to cut power. We're going to make sure the closest gas station to you is like 50 or 60 miles away. That's how you get them off that land, and you have no job prospects in that area. On top of most of the people who live in rural areas are farmers, so they'll have Bureau of Land Management, EPA, things of that sort come down on you and start fining you for, I don't know, having a pig farm that's not to code or some bullshit like that.
Right. Oh, well, I had experienced in my town. What Agenda 21 will do is they'll say, you live in a rural area, you need to be on a sewer. You people are polluting the ground. And before you know it, they either get that sewer pipe or they run you off your property. So you're right. They pass zoning laws. There's a guy named Alex Ansary that used to make videos for a long time, and he talked about how he himself and a bunch of people were living in a place called Castillo County, Colorado. And a lot of these people, these transients, were like living on a big tract of land, and they were just minding their own business. Well, they fucking got the local zoning board in there along with the corrupt council, and they drove them off the land. They said, oh, this is breaking zoning laws, or they passed a bunch of laws. They can basically kick off the gritters off the land just through zoning.
Yes, correct. They'll start, they'll become ambiguous in regard to the term plight, like what plight is. So like if you have like a old car sitting on your land, that would be considered plight. Oh, there's no license plate on that car, therefore we can tow it off your land, things like that. So and regarding the whole sewer aspect of things, basically the reason why they want to tie you into a sewer district, one is once you're tied into a sewer district, you have to pay utilities. So wastewater management, it plays a large part in taxing you on your runoff. Also, they can, the whole surveillance aspect of things is they can now monitor what's coming out of your house. They can see what you're flushing down the toilet. And also when you start tying into a sewer district, it's part of another larger aspect of things because it costs a lot of money to create a sewer district. Therefore, once you start implementing these type of municipality planning, your plan is to really build upwards, not outwards. So you'll see mainstream media news talk about sprawl being detrimental to society when in fact 90 or 93% of the United States is uncultivated. So
well, that's a normal thing. And you know what's stupid about it? When they force you on sewers, they actually do some damage to the environment, because out in the Midwest where people get their water from underground, or like in Kansas and stuff, they replenish the aquifer with the water that they put back in the ground. Now, with the sewer district, it all goes into the Mississippi River, which goes to the ocean. So we have all these things going on that are very destructive. And I'm just saying, like I said, it's to keep you in the matrix. And there's no such thing as freedom. I would tell anybody, buy a house, don't buy a house, rent a house. Because if you rent that house, you can get the fuck out of there if you have to.
Right, and they don't want you owning property. So being a renter, it plays right into Agenda 21's hands. Now, I don't like saying the word Agenda 21 because as soon as you say the word Agenda 21, people compartmentalize and they kind of isolate that thought into kind of the conspiratorial aspect of things. It's better to use the word sustainable development, master plan, smart cities, walkability, urbanism. Those are more proper terms.
Okay, but we have to identify it for what it is. It's Agenda 21, and that's the name of it.
They say it's Agenda 21. It's now revamped to Agenda 2030, and then they sent the UN set certain benchmarks for the future for where they are as far as implementing all these things. So they revamped it and called it Agenda 2030. I don't know. I forgot when they just recently did it. And countries that have implemented it full scale, you can look at Australia as a prime example of what Agenda 21 truly is. California, on the other hand, they rushed Agenda 21 a little too quick, and now it's kind of like a Hobbesian nightmare. And the funny thing is that
So in other words, in Australia, pretty soon nobody can live in the outback. They're going to all have to be in the cities.
You're correct.
Wow.
And they have you know, these city councils. They use the word governance, where it's not government, it's governance, where there's this unelected body that starts dictating city policies, and the local people really have no say in these things. How that comes about is that the local government accepts federal grant money, and with that federal grant money, there are certain things attached to it that the city must do. So, for example, you have to provide a bike sharing. You have to have like an LGBT community center. You can't have certain small businesses in the downtown. You limit the amount of parking spaces. You make it more difficult to travel with your car. So if you go to certain neighborhoods in the United States, tier 2 and tier 3 cities, you'll find it harder and harder to get around, and there's much more congestion. It's to get you out of your car and force you to ride like a bicycle or walk or what have you. Now, when the whole the thing is like, why do they attack vehicles? It's because it's a form of autonomy, which kind of like these communist utopias don't like. They don't like you being you know, having control of your own vehicle and deciding where it is you want to go. So they rather have you take public transit, trains, buses, bicycles, things like that.
So these redneck hillbillies that love their government, they're not going to be doing too well, are they?
Well, they make sure that all the money is geared towards certain locations. So that's why you'll see, you know, cities doing far better than, let's say, rural parts of the United States. And that's always been the case, make no mistake about it. But there was usually somewhat of a balance between the city folk and the rural folk. So there was always kind of like this balance, like, okay, if I don't really like the city, I can move out in the countryside. Well, now, no matter what, all the monetary gains and your ability to make money is geared towards major megalopolises. And this is seen in Tokyo, it's seen in Seoul, it's seen in Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, London. This is kind of what we're seeing, is that no matter what, if you want to make some type of money, you have to live in an urban center.
Well, it's a catch-22, because obviously urban, you can't have a farm, you can't raise pigs in an urban center. So they're talking about, the United Nations is talking about people getting their protein from bugs. They're trying to literally get us on a bug diet. Now, I don't think this is conspiracy. This is being well discussed, that the typical meat and cheese and meat and potatoes diet will maybe be a thing of the past.
Well, they're raising meat prices, and the UN, I think, recently said that pork is a carcinogen, causes cancer. Carcinogen, sorry.
Carcinogen,
yeah, carcinogen. So you already see that they're attacking pork, and pork is the cheapest of the meats, mind you. Yeah. So, and most of the world enjoys pork, except for like Muslims and obviously Jews. So, but going back to what I was saying before, you know, in Tokyo accounts for 40% of Japan's population, and I think for South Korea it's 60% for Seoul. In Asia, what you can witness and see if you were to go and visit these places, most of the people that live in the urban centers are between the ages of, let's say, 18 to like 45. Right? Mm-hmm. So the bulk of your workforce is living in the capital cities, in the major cities, and in the countryside, it's usually the children of those people and the elderly. I know that's kind of what you kind of see, is that the parents work 60, 70, 80 hours in these mega cities, and they send the money to the countryside to subsidize their extended family. In the United States, it's a little bit backwards, because we're all about the individual and stuff. We're basically depleting our middle class and our educated populace, and working them to death, and subsidizing the lower rungs of our society, and subsidizing basically the billionaire class. So it's a pressure from below and a pressure from above, squeezing out the middle class. And that's why you see this neoliberal, neo-feudal society being coming to fruition post-COVID.
Okay, let me ask a question. Let me interject here. Do you see a society where people who have, a lot of people say, oh, my 5 children are all doing very financially well. I still run into these people who claim their kids are making like 6-figure incomes, and they fly around the world. That's a big thing I always hear. My daughter works for Parker Hannifin, and she flies around the world. Do you see an end to that at some point? Because it seems like there's always going to be this snotty group of people that act like they're better than everybody. And I just can't see that situation lasting forever.
The pressure to perform is the backbone of the United States proletariat culture. So baby boomers don't want to tell their neighbors that their son is working in sanitation, and they don't want to say that their daughter is cutting hair at the salon at the street corner. So it's kind of this bravado where, look what my son's doing, look what my daughter's doing, I'm better than you. What a crowning achievement it is to slap a university bumper sticker on the family SUV. And that's going to come to an end very soon, because the university.
Well, I hope that part comes to an end, because I'm sick and tired of people. Like, a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of people struggling in this country. Although I kind of don't want that to happen, because if the middle class people get brought down, it's going to bring the whole system down. You know, that's not good either.
Well, if the continued rhetoric from feminism, and if we don't have some type of natural balance between the sexes, that's obviously going to happen.
Right.
You know, like, you know, go on, sorry.
What's America going to be, like a planet of serfs?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it's going to be. You know, like I wrote, again, I keep mentioning my articles on the American Sun. I actually discuss a little bit about what you've just stated about the whole flaunting of how well their children are doing. You know, it's like, take New York, for example, where it's an appeal to the ambitious. Like, if I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. And that is an amalgamation of things on the two sexes. And the illusionary, it's like, basically, like, if you work in San Francisco, if you work in New York, there's an illusionary portal of wealth. And all these young people are impressionable, newly minted college grads jockeying for position, but most of them, their big money fast aspirations dissipate, and they find themselves stuck in lower to middle tier management positions, and they never wind up making any money, and they don't save any money because their rents are so high, and they go out every Friday and Saturday night drinking and partying. And they're not saving up a nest egg or planning for the future, or basically creating some type of family unit to take care of them when they're in their twilight. So people my age that are in their 30s, if they're not married already, if they don't have any children, they're going to find things to be far more difficult when they're in their 60s or 70s, because they won't have a pension, they won't own any real estate.
Right. Well, let me interject while you're touching it, because you'll see a Hollywood movie where some hillbilly's living in some trailer on a big piece of land. And you know, I always thought, if you have a piece of land and nobody bothers you, it's a great way to live. The luxury to be left alone is going to be a thing of the past. Like, I just want the government to leave me alone. That the government's never going to leave you alone. Am I correct?
Well, if it's not the government, it's going to be the media or corporations, because a lot of these corporations have become bureaucracies onto themselves. So Google's a bureaucracy, Yahoo's a bureaucracy, Netflix is a bureaucracy, Walmart's a bureaucracy.
Okay, stop. Listen to me what I'm saying. I'm talking about, there's a lot of people, if you had $100,000 in savings and you had a small piece of land, or maybe out in the boondocks in a trailer or whatever, you could probably live off that 100 grand for a long time if you're frugal. It seems that there are forces in play that are not going to allow you to fucking live on a piece of land, even if you can pay for it. There are going to be ultimately things forcing you off that land. Am I correct?
Well, let's say you actually do want to be a bit of a homesteader and you want to live
Yeah,
on a
just get
rural
all,
piece of land.
just live out in the country and just let me have a well and a septic system
You,
and leave me the
you,
fuck.
you
That
you would have to really do your due diligence and see if that local county and
yes,
city and state have accepted some form of grant from the federal government that's
right.
implementing Agenda 21. So I think the state of Missouri has stopped any form of provide. Basically, Missouri said no to anything that has anything to do with Agenda 21. I don't know if there's any other states that have done that, and maybe Missouri has reversed it. Maybe there's some type of subversion where they've gotten around this type of ruling. But if if you like living in West Virginia would be a safe place, Wyoming, northern parts of Idaho, you'd really have to go out of your way and find what it is you're looking for and try to
It's very difficult.
really.
It's going to be very difficult. And I think that at some point, like the wildfires are being set by the UN. This is not a. These are not organic fires. This is bullshit.
Well, when you say UN, you have to put that in perspective. It's not really the UN. It's NGOs that receive money from the UN or from a
No, no, no,
foundation
no.
or from a
Disagree.
billionaire.
Disagree. The UN is behind Agenda 21. That is an agenda that the UN has. The United Nations in 1992 is when the United Nations had the Agenda 21 convention in
Hmm.
Rio de Janeiro.
Hmm. Yes, but
That
it's
was
not the
all.
UN that's actually coming there and lighting the it's not the UN that's implementing it.
No, 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 no. They
It's
work
the
through. They work.
NGOs that are like look up. You can look up
What is
ICLEI,
what is NGO? Define what that is.
non-governmental organization.
Okay, listen to me. The government, they pass these bills. There's a woman named Rachel Cora, C-O-R-E, or her last name's Cora. She worked in real estate in California, and she didn't understand.
Yeah, the
They
crazy lady with the white hair. I know who you're
Yeah, I
talking
know she's
about.
not crazy though. She's pretty smart. She's telling the truth. And the fact is, she's basically saying that they use your local city council people. It starts at that. They pass these zoning laws that make it impossible to own a piece of land. You can't drill it. You can't have a septic system on that. You can't take a shit in a hole in the ground, even if it's being filtered multiple times. You can't do this. You can't do that. That's all part of Agenda 21. That's how it's
Hmm.
called incrementalization.
Hmm. Yeah, but the thing is that who's setting these policies for the local governments are the NGOs, and the NGOs answer to the UN.
Yes, but it all boils down to the 1992 Rio de Janeiro. You can look it up on the internet when we're done talking. That's when Agenda 21 was brought out. It was called the Sustainability Project or something. And
Hmm.
this was Agenda 21 was all about getting people off their land and the mechanization of how they would do it. And that's why the redneck hillbilly who loves his gummin doesn't understand why all these regulations are being passed, because the dumb hillbilly thinks that somehow Trump's going to save the day, and it just ain't going to happen.
Well, it's not just the redneck or the southerner or the hillbilly. It's a lot of it stems from Boomer, who used his house as a form of equity to sustain himself. So again, it ties really back into real estate and single family housing and stuff. I mean, right now housing is through the roof. It's in the stratosphere. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Even during coronavirus, housing prices continue to climb. Like, I mean, it's crazy what the numbers are right now, and a lot of that has to do with the banks suppressing inventory. They're because of a lot of these zoning and zoning laws and codes make it more and more difficult to develop on a piece of land because of environmentalism and stuff. Real estate developers are only building $1 million homes. Well, why are they only building $1 million homes? Well, because how much rules and regulations are that when it's all said and done, between labor costs and materials and getting the permits and appealing to city council, well, that single family home that was like $250,000 20 years ago is now $1 million. And
Right.
it's not even built that well. It's just sheetrock and timber. It's like it's a junk box. The thing's not going to last 50 years standing on itself without some proper maintenance. You don't see a brick home anymore. Well, why? Because again, the labor cost is through the fucking roof, and the materials cost so much money. So that's why you see new housing costing so much. In addition to that, let's say you get an HOA and a sponsor to build
Right.
30 single family homes.
Right.
Well, guess what? Here comes Zillow or BlackRock to buy up all those homes and turn them into rentals, and you can't own any of it.
Right, but I mean, I obviously my idea is going to eventually be to sell my house because the taxes, either way you look at it, you're screwed. Okay, if you choose to stay in your home, let's say you have a house that's paid off. Some people do, some people don't. If you have a house that's paid off, you still got to pay those dastardly property taxes. So they're almost forcing you off your property. You're screwed either way. I mean, you're in a very bad situation.
Well, as housing prices increase, the county decides, oh, well, your house is now worth $500,000, even though you bought it for like $100,000 in the 90s. Well, because it's worth so much, we're going to do an assessment and raise your taxes.
Right.
This happened in New York just recently, and the people are like, wait a second,
Yeah.
it's not worth $800,000. You're saying it's worth $800,000.
Right. Oh no, that's a very big. That's a very taboo. A very touchy subject. When you or not touchy subject. It's a lot of controversy when they jack up the price on property, and then it's in other words they're artificially inflating the cost of the house, the value of the house, so that they can get more property tax.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then because you know damn well that house, if you sold it tomorrow, you're not going to get 800,000 for it.
Well, that's why you have to bring in Chinese people to buy that house, because the local populace can't afford it. And the past 10 or 15 years, at least that's the case in California and New York City, is that the local population, the millennials, can't afford any of these houses.
Yeah, the millennials basically are how many? What would you say percentage-wise millennials like born between 83 and 2000? How many of them actually own homes?
It's very low. I think it's like 14%.
So you're telling me that the boomers really cashed in?
Oh, big time. Boomer always cashes in. Boomer's going to ride into the sunset with his 401k.
Yeah.
Actually, let me take a look here. If you give me 1 second, I can tell you the exact number, because I actually wrote all this in my
And by the
article.
way, for these fucking idiots out there that say, "Oh, the boomers are 1979 to 89," or no, it's 83 to like 2000. That's the boomer. That's the generation X, because I call it the Caitlin generation.
Let me see here. What did I write? Okay, home ownership among people aged 25 to 34 has dropped from 45% in 2000 to 37% in 2016. All the while the top 100 private landowners grew by nearly 50% between 2007 and 2017. In 2007 alone, these landowners amassed the floor space of the entire region of New England. And banks for the past 100 years have been making trust after trust and are now at the auction steps outbidding the Joneses.
Okay, wait, slow down. Okay, you're just reading on. Okay, so from age 25, what was the stat you had about
25 to 34,
yeah,
45% own their own homes in the year 2000.
Okay.
It's now 37% in 2016.
I think it seems like it should be lower even than that. I don't
I agree. That seems like a high number.
I think that's a high number to say 1 in 3 people own a house between 25 to 34. I would say it's well, of course that was 4 years ago, so it could even be lower now, you know?
Right. Yeah. Post COVID, it may have dropped below 30%.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the TFL incel problem. People will say, "Oh, it's only 1 in 50,000 men can't find a woman." It's more like 1 in 2 guys can't find a woman. You know, it's like this problem. It's like stats. I think sometimes they lie about how bad things really are. It's easy to hide. I mean, I randomly know 6 or 7 guys just out of the clear blue that are all single, that don't have a woman in their life, and these are not people that I just arbitrarily decided to hang around. They're just people I know. And it's just like I almost know no guys that are hooked up with anybody, you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's kind of like, that's always kind of the fucking That's always the case. Now, going back to the whole incel TFL thing, and that ties in a little bit into the real estate aspect of things, is if people are in pair bonding, getting married, having children, the idea of owning a 4-bedroom house becomes obsolete. Then the 30-year mortgage becomes obsolete because millennials are already strapped with college debt, medical debt, car loans, what have you, credit card debts. So the last thing they're going to want to do is take a 30-year mortgage out. And as we merge into this kind of this transient Zoom-based economy, subscription-based boutique Taco Bell infrastructure, as I like to call it. I love saying Taco Bell infrastructure, but yeah, I mean, you have to be able to move quickly and relocate because of, I don't know, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, political instability, all these type of things. So this kind of coincides with what Agenda 21 wants, is you being a permanent renter. Again, the subscription-based economy where you
I
don't
agree with it.
actually
And the
own
way
anything.
in the way they do it, and I've talked to you about this before. You can fight it. Okay, you can say, well, I'm going to damn this. I'm going to spite the system and choose to own my own home. You can do that and succeed at it. Let's say you do inherit some money and able to buy a home, but they can make your life fucking miserable because, okay, you have a septic system and it works fine. Okay, then some builder comes in there and decides, I want to own this property. I ran into this in my own community. I ran for mayor to stop this, and I got so much flack from it, but I still got my name out there. Okay, I ran for mayor of my town. I applied and all that other stuff. And the point was, I was trying to stop this sewer project, which I miserably failed at because nobody fucking backed me. But you're dealing with now, they just raised the property taxes in my town, these fucking morons, and I'm going to call my voters in my own town as morons. They voted a property tax in the middle of fucking COVID, when the kids were told to go home. They voted a property tax in, and they hiked it up again. So we are looking, and here's another form of welfare. They said that since we ran the sewer pipe past your house, it's going to cost you between $12,000 to $20,000 just to run the privilege of running the pipe past your house. Not to mention the hookup fees. $30,000 in equity is gone in my house because of this project. They're making it to the point where you have no choice because they.
And I lost you. Steve.
You cannot fight this system. It's so evil.
You cut out there for a minute.
Okay, what I was basically saying is that even if you choose to own a house, or whether you choose to rent, owning a house is not a bargain because you're fucking loaded with property taxes, and they can jack them up every friggin' year. They go up, and with these school levies, they pass them almost every time in my town.
Okay, so now the question is, if you actually want to, Steve's bringing up a good point here, and
Yeah.
I am in the real estate industry. I do consider myself a bit of an expert when it comes to these type of things, especially when it comes to Agenda 21. I've been studying Agenda 21 for over 10 years. Now, how do you get around it if you actually want to own a piece of property, right? Well, first and foremost, the single family home is on the chopping block. So I can honestly say that owning a single family home in a blue city is a disaster. Okay. What you would want to do is buy into either a housing cooperative or a very large condominium, because as a housing cooperative, you act as a community, and you're able to galvanize a large group of people to fight off whatever the city is trying to do. And if you live in a small housing cooperative or a small condominium, it's dangerous, because if the city were to slap various violations on that building, it'll be very hard for you to pay off your assessments and your common charges because of those violations.
It sounds, I don't even feel sorry for myself, and I don't want to get into my personal financial. I can probably afford to sell my house at some point and get out of here and cash it and get my money or whatever. But for average people out there, I have a lot of empathy for people, and I know that this country is fucking hemorrhaging. The people on my street or in my area or surrounding area are not wealthy people. They can't afford these new property taxes. They can't afford to be paying for a sewer hookup and then have to pay an assessment fee. It's fucking off the Richter scale insane. So this Agenda 21 is what they're succeeding at getting people off the land. Now, here's where I think it's going to go further. You're going to have people that just go the vagabond route and do the off the grid, drive around in their car. If they limit transportation and they cut, I think the days of people driving their VW across the fucking country like in the 60s is going to be a thing of the past. I see this country going into a full lockdown mode where you will need papers to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. I know New York State had some issues with the driver's license where you have to, they keep extending it, but this goes back to 2005 with the Patriot Act that eventually it's going to come home to roost that if people from New York State want to travel to another state, you have to bring your passport and not your driver's license anymore.
Right.
Now,
Right.
digressing off the whole real estate aspect of Agenda 21, let's look at what they're doing with vehicle ownership. Okay. Cash for clunkers. What did
Right.
cash for clunkers do? Mind you, this is 2009.
Cash for clunkers, it forced people to what, buy new cars?
It forced people to get rid of their old cars and buy new cars.
Right, right.
So what you did was you now culled the used car like inventory. So that's
So
why
you basically, what do they do?
used cars went up in price. Okay,
Mhm.
skyrocketed. One reason is because of cash for clunkers. The other reason is that no one can afford a new car. Why can't you afford a new car? Is because of all the new climate change bullshit and emissions regulations where they've over computerized, over digitalized the modern car. So now even modern cars, and Trump actually mentioned this in his debate that a new car is what? What's an entry level car these days? 30,000?
You can get a car for 18,000, a really nice car. You can get a car under 20,000 still.
Get the hell out of here! What car are you driving for under 20K?
Oh no, you can buy a car. You can buy like they still make like economy cars. Like you can buy a Volt. I think a Volt is like under 20,000.
I'm not gay, Steve. Okay, I
Okay.
need my V8.
Oh, okay. Well, if you need a V8, then fine. Okay.
No, but the point is that okay, there I'm sure that a Chevy Volt, okay, that's gonna last. How many years is that car really gonna fucking last? I mean, Chevy doesn't make anything good anymore.
Yeah. They got rid of the Chevy Cruze. That was actually a good car. The Chevy Cruze was made not too far from where I live. In I forget what it was called, what plant it was. It was in near Youngstown, at Lordstown. It was. I mean, and I feel bad that they stopped making it. It was actually a good car.
Well, the thing is that relatively speaking, the median price for a new car, I think, is like 25,000, between 25 and 30,000. I was
Which is
actually
yeah.
I was in the process of looking for a new car because
Hmm.
my mechanic keep telling me I blew a head gasket, and I go, "You lost your fucking mind! I didn't blow a head gasket." And sure enough, I did not blow a head gasket. I know my car. God damn it! Never listen. Digressing. Always go with your gut and never shortchange yourself. When you think that someone is wrong and they're telling you that they're right, you're usually right. Right? And I kept telling the mechanic, I don't have a blown head gasket. I do not have a blown head. You blew a head gasket. It's going to cost $2,500. I go, I did not blow a head gasket. I go and get a second opinion. He's saying that I blew a head gasket. I go do X, Y, and Z and tell me if I blew a head gasket. Sure enough, didn't blow a head gasket. But anyway, the point is that used cars are very expensive now. Okay,
Right.
and new
But
cars.
every fucking idiot seems to be driving one. This is another thing. I don't understand where Americans got this money because, like, I'm very frugal with my money, and I've never made a lot. I've never made over 50,000 in a year. I mean, that's not brag. I mean, I know people that make that in their 20s, but here's the whole thing though, is that like it seems like despite this shitty economy, we still see people unless they're living beyond their means driving these nice cars. So what's your opinion of that?
It's just more debt. You don't
More debt.
again, you don't own the car. You took a loan out for the car. This goes back
Right.
to the subscription-based economy. You're leasing a car. You're renting a car. You don't
Mhm.
actually own the car. You are making payments for the next 4 to even, I think they extended out to 10 years now
Oh
for a
yeah,
new
yeah,
car.
yeah. I think 4 year car loans was. I remember 5 years was like extreme. You were pathetic if you got a 5 year car loan, but now 5 years is considered a small car loan. You know?
Right. So you're looking at a payment of like 350 and up for a new car. So unless
Right.
you have a business or an S corp and LLC, and you can write that payment off, you're pretty much screwed. And then the other question is, are you going to hold on to that car after you're done making the payments? Same thing with a modern day cell phone. Why are cell phones now over $1,000? Well, you decided to make payments on it. Say if you were to remove the idea of making payments and loans off of everything, you'll see the true value of everything come to fruition, and the whole economy would crash. So we're kind of this whole debt-based economy where we're no longer, you know, uh, rewarding labor. We're actually rewarding debt, and that's basically
Yeah.
how
Okay.
society
Okay.
starts to collapse.
I'm going to get into an ugly subject. It's going to be related to TFL, incel, and the economy in general. Do you think that there could be a situation where, like, do you think these celebrities will be able to live a safe life like they do now, or do you think that they will be have to live under more protection? Because it seems like you're going to have a bigger division between rich and poor in this new world.
Um, Well, if things get bad enough and there is some type of economic collapse, then yeah, sure, it'll get bad. So, like if you're a billionaire and you have a private helicopter and the mechanic decides to leave a fucking monkey wrench in a turbine, yeah, you're screwed. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, don't piss off, labor, man. And that seems to
Yeah.
be the going rate amongst the ruling classes, that they just have this animosity, and they kind of they look down on poor people, you
Right.
know. Eventually people just snap. When people have nothing to lose, they lose it. I said that to you on our first live stream
Yeah,
we did.
that's Gerald Celente always says that when
Yes,
people,
yes, Gerald,
yeah,
yes, it's Gerald
that,
Salente, correct.
that's
And,
his favorite saying. And he's pissed me off over the years. He predicted this economy would have died 10 years ago, and it kept dragging and dragging. So,
yeah, well,
um,
again, a broken clock tells the time correct, but here's the thing is that um as far as labor and the cost of living and stuff, people are pretty much treading water, and they were treading water going into COVID. So
right,
when COVID hit, the normie con was very happy to sit home because he was just so exhausted from his daily drudgery. And then it kind of extended, they kept telling you 2 weeks. Oh, it's just 2 weeks. It'll come back. It'll come back, right, Gerald Celente again. And it hasn't come back. And now people
oh,
are like wondering,
he said it would come back.
no, he's being sarcastic, saying it'll come
Oh
back.
yeah, he's
V-shaped
been so.
recovery. V-shaped recovery.
Uh,
Mm. But when you have a ruling class that is so disconnected from reality, and it goes back to Agenda 21, where, okay, you want to put a Mexican migrant on a what is it, a rent a bike sharing
right,
program. It doesn't work that way. You
right,
want a woman from India to comply with eating bugs. Like, these things don't really mesh, right? And
right.
it's
They
kind of
don't.
like they're trying to peg a square hole where the fucking
Yeah,
saying
well,
is.
that's the whole point in the whole thing with the bugs. I mean, I really do, but see, I think that you're maybe not as you say you understand Agenda 21, but you don't see it being some Orwellian nightmare where they have to delete the population down to a low level or
Well, they're already doing it through feminism, and
yeah,
and that's, you don't have to mass starve everyone. You can just do it incrementally by
right,
suppressing women's fertility.
right,
And the thing is that family formation is your right. You can do it if you want. Like, there's nothing that stops you from having children, really. Well, how do you actually go ahead and subvert it? Well, you do it through feminism. You put women into the workforce, and you kind of distract your fertile women with things like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and college, and working a 9-to-5 job, so they don't really have time to really go out and meet someone.
Right.
Never forget, I mean, Agenda 21, there's a couple moving parts to Agenda 20: education, women's rights, open borders, real estate. It's very all encompassing. And if you were to take a step back and look at Agenda 21 as a whole, you can break up the graph and really dissect each part and see that there is an agenda beneath all these social programming aspect of things. The other thing
Well,
is,
they're already implementing it. You know what? If you don't believe Agenda 21 is real and it's global, they've already locked down the entire nation of Australia. Yet they're flying in surreptitiously Asians on these private planes. Nobody knows what's really going on. But the whole country is in complete lockdown. It's disgusting. If this isn't Agenda 20, I don't know, 21, I don't know what is. But
here's the thing, right? It's really like the big crux of Agenda 21 is climate change, right? Now, who is okay with climate change policy? It's the
well, I'm going to tell you right now, Jennifer Aniston, the first thing she said at the Academy Awards was, Australia is burning. We need to pay attention to climate change. I thought, what a fucking idiot. So celebrities are one of them.
Well, it's celebrities, absolutely, but they're obviously hypocrites because they don't actually fucking do anything they say.
Yeah, they all live in mansions.
They're having foie gras and Saint Tropez. So it's really the techno oligarchs. It is it's your Googles, it's your Facebooks, it's your joint venture capitalists, the venture capitalists, all these techie startups out of Silicon Valley. The reason why they're okay with climate change is because none of these rules they have to abide by. So when you start talking EPA regulations, well, who does that affect?
Right.
Well, it affects the oil industry. It affects the mechanic. It affects General Motors. It affects people that build airplanes.
Speaking of that too, when they force you onto sewers, they don't tell you that the sewer district dumps 20% of their overflow into the river. There is there's no oversight on that either. So this is kind of like crony capitalism on the utility level too, where they tell you you got to get rid of this, but you're right. Google is not going to abide by these strict laws. It's going to be just the common man.
Mm-hmm. So Google, all they have to do is have electricity and a server and servers and a place to store their servers. They don't have to build. They don't really require manpower to get things done, right? They have AI, they have robots, they have H-1B1 visa holders coming in from India to do all their work, and suppress your freedom of speech, which Twitter does.
They import all these male scrotums that are lonely when they get to California. It's notice it's always male immigration they bring in. They just saturate the market with more dick.
It's always scrotal on scrotal, as Steve likes to call it.
Yeah, scrotal on scrotal competition.
Well, so the whole green agenda is really coming out of Silicon Valley. It's not coming out. And now get this. I'm going to build upon that. What Wall Street has done is they've taken up large portions of the shares of these multinational corporations. So let's say if BlackRock now owns 30 to 40% of Shell Oil Company, what BlackRock is going to do now is tell Shell Oil Company, you must abide by these climate change policies, or we're going to pretty much throw out the CEO, CFO, and all the apparatuses within Shell Oil Company. So basically, with BlackRock, I'm using BlackRock it's not actually BlackRock. I actually don't know who the majority stakeholder is of Shell, but I'm just using this as an example so you guys can understand. So what BlackRock is doing is sabotaging other corporations by buying out these corporations from underneath them by buying their shares.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you're saying that so well, what does that have to do with environmental policy?
Because what BlackRock wants to do is to destroy businesses. It's not about money anymore. Now that they have all the money, their objective is to enslave you. So now they're just destroying industry after industry, and that's what you're going to start seeing going forward. If you look at the energy sector, for example, it's in the absolute fucking shitter because
Okay, but I'm
no
going to
one's
make
flying
another point.
airplanes.
I'm going to make another point here. We can talk all about how corporations are controlling this and that. It's going to eventually take military armed forces to control masses of people. Do you really think the masses will put up with this abject poverty forever? If you're a redneck hillbilly and you no longer can drive your 8 feet off the ground pickup truck in your Harley Davidsons, at some point there's going to be an insurrection with this. Do you see there's going to be high end of maybe private security firms that will man these neighborhoods and control people this way? Or
It's possible because you can see the vitriol hatred for the police. So if you
right.
want to defund the police, that gives rise to the privatization of
Okay,
security
well,
and
and then another thing is
paramilitary.
Second Amendment rights are going to be. Here's what scares me about Donald Trump, and I've listened to so many of these people defend Donald Trump on this internet radio. Donald Trump has not once brought up the Second Amendment protection. It's scaring me because I mean, when the COVID thing first started, he mentioned gun stores as being a necessity to open that. But this is at the beginning of COVID. Ever since then, he has not brought up the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is what protects us from tyranny.
Mhm.
I have a weird sneaking suspicion that there's something's going to go down where Trump is going, and he's going to win the election probably, and he's going to give the authority to local authorities to decide who. In other words, I can see the knocking on people's doors for or the roundup of people's firearms. I can see this where it's going.
Well,
I don't
okay,
know what you.
okay, all right. Police knock on your door. Do you have any guns here? No. Okay, bye. Like
No,
I
no,
don't
no, no,
miss.
no. I disagree. No, it's not going to be that simple. If the military comes to your house to give you to give you the shot, they're gonna have other stipulations to go in your house and start walking through. We don't have rights anymore. I don't think I'm going to see is you don't have any constitutional rights anymore. Basically, there is no the search and seizure can be pretty much wielded at any time on anybody. You follow me?
Yes.
You don't have any rights anymore. I don't think people understand this. These people that get arrogant and say, "Well, it hadn't happened to me. Happened to me." They're only. My sister called me on this one time. I told her about how people act tough, and she said, "Oh, fuck these people. They act tough, but when they're in that situation, they're cowards, you know."
Mhm.
And
Mhm. Yeah,
people
again,
act
the,
tough.
the lack of solidarity in the community, especially in the white community, is fueling that because
Yeah.
again, the breakup of the family unit because of feminism has really destroyed the family unit. That's why you see the lack of pretty much community organizations and trying to counter a lot of these clown-esque escapades that we're witnessing. We're wearing a mask. I mean, there's curfews in certain cities in the United States. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a curfew? What does a curfew have anything to do with COVID-19? Well, it has nothing to do with COVID-19. It's really about your enslavement and you losing your civil liberties.
Another thing is we passed these new laws called the red flag laws. What constitutes a red flag law? It could just be arbitrary. We don't like you, so we're going to keep you from having a job, owning a firearm, adopting kids. I mean, the red flag laws are very eerie. I mean, that is just like talk about lack of due process.
Well, the Second Amendment is eventually going to disappear because predominantly it's white men that believe in the Second Amendment. And once you become once you lose your majority stakeholder in the nation and you're reduced to a minority, well, the majority now is, this fucking mystery meat, globalized,
Right.
economic zone. That's how they're going to go around the Second Amendment. And again, it's incrementalism with the stopping of what was it, bump stocks, making it harder to get like suppressors, making it harder to get certain parts for your gun. And
Right.
you know, Remington Firearms just filed bankruptcy. How the hell does that happen? I have
How
no
does that
idea.
happen? Right. Remington,
Right.
like they made like the superior shotguns, and you're kidding me. They filed for bankruptcy?
Hmm. You can Google that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
So that's not a good sign.
Colt Firearm is no longer providing receivers or barrels. Colt is only going to be providing those things to the U.S. military. So
Oh
now
my
you're
God, is it that bad?
yeah. So now your AR-15 parts are going to be like Bushmaster and not the real deal anymore. It's not going to be provided by
Well, but
Colt.
I could but Bushmaster's better than nothing. I mean, it would
Well,
still be
true,
better.
of course, but for me, I want the Colt. I want the real thing. I don't want to. I want see, I'm using cars as an example, but like if I want
Right,
an
but
AR-15, I
here's
want
the
a
thing.
Colt.
I don't think that the government even wants you to have secondhand guns. I mean, they don't want you anything.
Well, you know what? It's too late. The cat's out of the bag because there's like 300. I forgot what's the number of rifles in the United States. It doesn't even have to be an AR-15. You can have a bolt action shot,
No,
a bolt
a
action.
12 gauge shotgun is all you need to defend yourself.
Yeah,
It's all you need.
exactly. Yeah, and there's too many guns in the United States as is. So even if you do some type of buyback program, you're only going to get like a small portion of weapons from the populace. But
It's
again, the rise of the paramilitary, this whole
right,
Blue Lives
but
Matter
I
thing.
guess what I'm saying is, unless these militia people are willing to use these guns, they're cowards, and I think most of them are. I mean, I think that a good example was that everybody kept saying, "Oh, it's going to be a bloodbath in Sturgis." No, it wasn't. The hillbillies backed down. They were like, they were verbally arguing with them, but that's it. They weren't going to fight. Those bearded hillbillies don't fight. They act tough, but when push comes to shove, when they're standing up to blacks will walk them right down. White people are afraid of blacks. I mean, it's just the way it is. I
Well, yeah,
mean,
we touched up on that on our
yeah, you
first
said
live
it's
stream.
when they have nothing to lose, but what it basically boils down to, a Milt, is simply this: that in order for a white person to stand up to an Antifa or a black mob, they have to be a street tweaker with nothing to lose. That you never wanted to get to that point, because when you got nothing to lose, you're already a broken man.
A street tweaker. I like that.
Okay, a street tweaker is the white kid who can jive ass with the blacks and doesn't take any shit because he's got nothing to lose, right? Like you said. But
Mhm.
as long as these hillbilly rednecks are not willing to fight, they're not going to fight. I mean, I don't, they talk a mean game, but they're not fighting, you
Well,
know?
you would have to have some type of black swan moment, which I don't think is going to happen. And as long as there's food in your face, you're really not going to fight, and you're not going to put up any
And
type
that, like I
of
said,
resistance.
the thing that the right could have done was gone on an offensive in the streets when they were rioting and breaking windows. The right should have immediately started an offensive to stop it, but they don't. So what it seems to me to the right, the problem with the right is that they're not going to fight until they've been disarmed, basically, and are fucking broken. You don't fight when you're a broken man. You gotta aggress it before it gets out of hand. You know.
Well, going back to the rioting and looting, first and foremost is that most of the rioting and looting took place in commercial downtowns, where
Right.
most of these far right guys that are armed and are LARPing, sucking the cop dick, they don't have a stake in those commercial city centers because most of them are
I
owned by.
understand. Interrupt you for a second. Antifa has already gotten permits. BLM has been permitted to come into towns already, small white towns. White people are too scared to do anything about it.
I
They're
haven't
not
seen
doing anything.
I haven't seen enough of that to justify any type of
Okay, the
reaction.
guy that I chatted with, TFL at War, in his town of Iowa, BLM was there. In my town, BLM was there. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that there's no counter people standing up to these groups coming into their little communities. So you're saying, oh, this is only going on in the big city. No, it's not. BLM and Antifa are in these small towns already. They're
Hmm.
already marching and getting permits to march.
Right.
Now,
Look, I experienced BLM in my own town, but they didn't really. It was only like about 2 dozen fucking. It was mostly white women protesting.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't
Okay.
seen. I haven't really seen it.
It'll be interesting if there is, whether it's an artificial or whatever, if these riots make it to the suburbs, which is a frightening prospect. I'm gonna hedge my bets that not one of these gun owners or one of these law-abiding citizens will fight back. I'm gonna hedge my
I
bet.
don't see it ever coming to the suburbs. I don't.
You are naive as hell. That we're 15, 20 minutes from a suburb. Most suburbs are only 20 minutes away from a big city.
I agree. I am fully
What, so
aware of that.
what would keep these people in the middle of the inner city if the grocery stores break down, or let's say the trucks say fuck it, it's too
That's
dangerous.
different. You're conflating. Now you're talking about where it's a shit hits the fan scenario. That's different from what's happening
But
at the
that's
moment.
that we're not far from shit hitting the fan. We're not that far from it.
I
Shit,
don't see a shit hitting the fan happening. I just don't see it. It's not what they want. It's not what the ruling class wants. They don't want to. And here's the problem. Let me explain to you. Okay. Now,
I think you're way naive, but I'm gonna give you the benefit.
here I'm
I
going to
think you're
explain.
overly optimistic about the American people. I don't. I think it's
Okay.
gonna be. We are
Let,
gonna be in a shit. Go
let
ahead.
me explain. Okay. A color revolution. This is soft power. This is the silk glove. This is slow subversion. When we invaded Iraq, the neocons, okay, that was kind of like in a way, a shit hits the fan. We're going in bombs, guns and glory, fucking killing a bunch of Iraqis, right? When you do something like that, there's a wild card. A wild card could be a faction of jihadists taking up arms and taking a province or whatever in Iraq or Syria. They don't want that because if there is a wild card scenario, the ruling class loses a power play. And we can talk about Osama bin Laden being some type of blowback. You don't want a blowback scenario. So when you have a shit hits the fan situation, you might get some type of blowback, and you're going to have a wild card arise from the ashes and cause and basically become like a loose cannon where the ruling class can't control it. That's what they don't want. They rather have it incrementally where they still have enough power and they're able to manage it and regulate it within a means. So that's why I don't think you're going to see
Okay,
these
so
type
but
of
okay,
things
one thing
happening.
you assume that, but what if the agenda is much bigger than your wild card? You're assuming when you say the ruling class, what constitutes ruling class? Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, he's being buried financially because of this COVID thing. I think that when you say ruling class, you have to be specific what you mean by that, because the ruling class as the multimillionaires are fucked in this world. This is going into beyond the money issue.
Certain segments are getting screwed. Kushner,
Yes,
for example, is getting screwed because he owns commercial real estate in New York City. Trump is getting screwed because he's a real estate owner also. But
right.
I'm really focusing more on the Silicon Valley types. They are the ones that are kind of really pulling the strings on everything that is happening. I
Right.
listened to Z-Man. Z-Man he's become a bit of a favorite of mine the past month. He kind of, and it makes a lot of sense. The United States is somewhat of a rent a government, where basically do you want to rule America for the next 5 to 10 years? Okay, cough up like a couple $1 trillion and you get to be rule of the United States, and it changes hands every few decades or whatever. I don't really agree with that, but it makes a lot of sense. But when you talk again, the people, the powers that being, the shadows on the wall, what have you, they've kind of tipped their hand and they've kind of showed like what they're doing, what their plans are. So when you talk about Jerry Jones, well, Jerry Jones is not really high enough on the pendulum, not on the pendulum, higher up on the totem pole as far as who's ruling the United States. It's
No, I know that, but when you say ruling class, so then you're telling me that even though these people have money, they're just peons. I agree with. I think they're really peons, because if that was the case, I see them shutting down professional sport. I mean, they've succeeded at basically systematically shutting down almost completely professional sports, because these stadiums, they depend heavily. The NBA is completely shot. with all the social justice warrior bullshit going on. So, I mean, it seems like these elites really want to shut down they almost want to get like a huge stranglehold on the country to the point where even millionaires are suffering.
Yes, I completely agree with you. You know, the whole sport aspect of things is that it's a not just sports, but it's a controlled demolition of the United States by destroying the money velocity, where money moves and changes hands from one person to another. And regarding sports, it's interesting because what the powers that being are doing is that they're taking the bread and circuses away from you and want you to focus on politics and politics only, and get you more angry and pent up and pissy. And they want you to be kind of like this whole lone wolf terrorist thing where you go out and fucking do something pretty crazy. And I'm quite astounded that the middle class and people that have something to lose have not reacted to this, because I think most men are wise enough not to react. I mean, most guys that have guns in America are not stupid, unlike people in like South America. So if Black Lives Matter or Antifa decides to go into a gated community and start lighting houses on fire, there's no question in my mind that there'll be a vitriol reaction and there'll be blood in the streets, but they don't want that. And it won't take much blood in the streets to get Black Lives Matter and Antifa to stop. But the problem is that
they've already, how they countered it. Remember that family, I think Kansas City or in St. Louis, I don't know where
St. Louis.
St. Louis. They stood their ground with their guns. Why are they looking for federal charges? Because white people already know that if they stand up with their guns on their property, they're going to go to federal prison. So everybody they don't prosecute criminals, they prosecute law-abiding citizens. That's why they're doing it. So you're fucked either way. So I don't think people are going to take the risk of shooting Antifa people in their neighborhood because they don't want to go to prison. They've had enough. The system is purposely been done like this. You're screwed either way.
Yeah, absolutely. What a lot of people haven't realized, and this goes back to what you were discussing, where you don't have any rights. It's at the point now where, hey, listen, if you shoot someone that's breaking into your house and raping your wife, and you're like, oh, let me call 911 and report that I shot an armed man raping my wife, that's over. You can't call the cops anymore, because the cops are just going to arrest you at this point. You see what I'm saying? In Cambodia, there's a law. If someone enters your home and is not supposed to be in your home and you shoot him dead, that's it. The question's over. Okay, good job. Bye. Yeah, he's not supposed to be in your house. They'll have an investigation. They'll question the homeowner and such, but there's no social justice for the criminal. And that's what social justice is about, which again is tied in with Agenda 21, which has an appendage of social justice. And what does social justice mean? It means that, okay, you killed a rapist who broke into your house trying to, bang your wife. Well, he did it because of X, Y, and Z. That's social justice. Instead of just arresting him for breaking your house and raping your wife, it's actually your fault on why he did it, because of some type of oppression from whatever 200 years ago and what have you.
No, I don't think it would be that direct. I think it would be, I'm talking specifically though, I think that if it gets to the point where and I disagree with you. You said Antifa and BLM will never make it to the suburbs. I disagree with that. I totally disagree. What would stop them from doing it? What would stop? Why would they only relegate themselves to the cities?
What would stop them? Well, first of all, if you look at
You
what
assume
happened,
that law-abiding suburban people are going to fight back, and I'm telling you, they're not going to fight back. They're going to sit back and do nothing.
Look, hey, listen, that you can. I'm not denying that, and a part of me agrees with you what you're stating, that most of the white population is going to sit back and
I've been
take it in
pushed
the
around.
ass.
I've seen people act tough around me for years. I've tried to tell people, and I'm very I have a little bit of trepidation when it comes down to situations like this, but they act tough. Oh, well, I'm going to tell you how I would handle it. And my sister called me on it one time, and she says, Steve, these people that act tough are fucking cowards. My sister worked for the gas company. She dealt with all these tough people that act tough, but they're really not tough. these hillbillies aren't tough like they think. Oh, I'm gonna get my gun. We drive a Harley. These Harley Davidson guys, you gotta have 30 grand to buy a Harley now. You think when you have too much to lose, you're gonna fight? These people are gonna. You have to have nothing to be a good fighter. You have to have everything to gain and nothing to lose, and that's what Antifa and BLM have: is everything to gain and nothing to lose.
And I completely agree with you. That's exactly what Antifa and Black Lives Matter is. And the more and more people are pushed further and further down on the socioeconomic ladder, that'll give rise to some type of revolutionary scenario. Because as we discussed earlier in this recording, is that we're having a whole generation being left out of the property class. So if you don't own your house and you're renting it, I'm just going to burn it down. It's not mine. I don't really care. And it goes back to, why are they attacking these commercial spaces in city centers? Because no one has any vested interest or have any. Basically, it's meaningless to them. If they burn a Nike store down, no one cares, because Nike owns it, and Nike is a multinational corporation. It's not a mom and pop shoe store. See, if it was a mom and pop shoe store, he'd be out there with a chainsaw and chasing these people down and gutting them in the street. And we did see that with a lot of Hispanic shop owners in California and New York City. When Black Lives Matter made it to the working class neighborhoods of New York City, it was snuffed out it was like quick. I mean, it just ended. Like, you're not coming anywhere near our neighborhoods. So, and then the other thing is that once like Black Lives Matter has like a ground zero, wherever that might be, in like Seattle, like the Chad zone or whatever. Okay, once it ventures outside of that Chad zone, it tends to dissipate and it loses steam. So
But here's a problem, though. See, if in the state of Michigan,
it very simple. It overextends itself, and they don't have enough
but you
numbers.
cannot legally walk outside of your house with a gun, okay? Because the cops can shut you down right there. They could say you're breaking the law, okay? But in some states like Michigan, you can still do it because they have the open carry law. But a lot of states don't have open carry, okay? So you can't just block your neighborhood by saying, well, how are you going to stop Antifa from, you're going to need to physically stop it, okay? As soon as you walk outside with your gun in your hand or you're on the street, you're breaking the law. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, and again, if you're at that point where you're pulling a gun out in the street, I certainly hope you're going to use it. Don't just start brandishing a rifle or a handgun and not think
okay,
you're
if
not
you're
going to
willing
use
to
it.
use it, then you're going to be in even more shit, okay? You're in more trouble if you use it.
Well, again, it's a survival. It's not. You're not supposed to actually do. Look, if you're pulling a gun out, I certainly hope you have a reason for pulling it out. You can't just pull it out for the sake
Well,
of
okay, so
there's a bunch of
that
black people
law-abiding
walking on your street.
couple in St. Louis had a reason to pull it out. Would you not say they had a reason? They broke through their fucking...
I don't know enough about that story to give an opinion on it. And for all I know, that can be a
It would
total
take you
mainstream
about
media
you could
psyop.
invest about 5 minutes of fucking time, Lampley, to do it. 5 minutes is all you would need to take to find out what they were doing. They were on their property, and these people broke through their gate.
Right, and then who's the attorney general for St. Louis?
Some black lady that hates white people, and she clearly wants them prosecuted.
Well, she was put there by George Soros. So that kind of, that's how that really comes about, because what Obama had done with the help of the Open Society Foundation was start putting these radical communists into power. I mean, you have a Jewish transgender as the head of the health department for Pennsylvania. Well, how the fuck did a transgender wind up being at head of the state of Pennsylvania? You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how these things, even AOC, for example, literally came out of nowhere. Who the fuck just texted me and blowing my shit up? Oh, okay, never mind. AOC ran unopposed. The person who ran against AOC was a Greek guy who was thrown underneath the bus by his own party because of a Me
Why don't you
Too movement.
define what AOC is? You assume everybody knows what AOC is. What is AOC?
AOC Cortez, the hot little Puerto Rican.
What does AOC stand for, though?
Asia Cortez, whatever fucking, I just
Okay,
call her.
so you're talking about an individual person that. Oh, Cortez where's she from? What state? Arizona?
No, New York.
Okay, yeah, Oseo Cortez, AOC, is that her? Okay. Okay, what about her?
She ran unopposed. She ran
Mhm.
against a Greek guy who the Republican Party threw underneath the bus because he had some like domestic battery charge way back when. So this, I think
Yeah.
his name was Pappas. He had to basically go around to everyone's house, but personally, and say, vote for me, vote for me. Meanwhile, the establishment threw millions of dollars behind AOC's campaign to make sure
Right.
she got into office. So the Republican Party is quite okay with sabotaging itself
Right.
and letting these radical fucking communists take power in most of the United States.
Well, this gets back to what I said earlier. We've got this entire system going under communism, and you seem to think that it's going to be business as usual, with maybe a little more oppression. But I think we're going into full-fledged communism. I think
Well,
you don't.
it's technically fascism. It's not communism.
Well, no. But what we're dealing is with a tyrannical government that's going to be
Yes,
off the charts, worse than we've ever experienced.
yes, but it will still
Okay.
be business as usual.
Oh, I don't know. I don't agree with you. It won't be business as usual. You mean no? Corporations. Jerry Jones won't be able to run his Dallas Cowboys the way he used to.
Yeah, of
Either.
course. Well, that's all gone. You can forget sports. I mean, forget that whole
When you
industry.
say business as usual, you got to be specific what you mean by business as usual. That's a very general statement. When I think business as usual, I think of multimillionaire owners with their loges getting free stadiums. I think about wealthy people and gated communities. That's business as usual. I think that even the big gated community people that are living the good life now are going to be. It's not going to be business as usual.
Well,
So
then
when
they'll
you
just
say it's
move. They'll
business as
move. They're
usual,
gonna they're gonna move their.
I totally disagree. It's business. What we're going to experience, just because Google's running the world, doesn't mean that's business as usual. That's off the charts. Something totally different.
The plan is to UBI, right? So we already know the plan is they want universal basic income. There's no question about that, and there's no doubt about it in
Which
mind.
is, but I don't know what that's going to do. Why would they want UBI? What's that going to do? Make you dependent on the government, right?
Right, there you go. Right. So let's go back to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys for a moment.
Okay, it's a good example.
Those sports are gone. Just like forget sports. Okay. So now what happens there? Okay, so there's no more vendors. There's no more upkeep to the stadium. There's no more football players. There's no more personal trainers. There's no more administration. There's no more of those things. Tens of thousands now jobless. Well, what are they going to do now? What is the plan? Well, they're going to go on UBI. Okay, but here's the thing. You're just not going to get that money. Okay, this is not going to be a freebie. It's not going to be like welfare as we know it, as we experience today and what we've experienced since the
Okay, what you're
poverty.
talking about is okay. What you're talking about is a form of welfare that's going to make you a slave to the state.
Okay, but yes, but here's the catch. Is they're not just going to give you that welfare check.
A slave to the state. That's what I mean. A slave to the state. You physically are going to have to work for that money.
Yes, and
Okay.
you know how you're going to work for that money? You're going to be a farmer.
Yeah.
You're going to be a farmer.
Okay. And you're going to be like,
and you're going to make your own cricket tiki masala, and you're going to have your little vegan food and your fucking and shit like that, and your sustainable fucking piss water.
oh my God.
And now, okay, you ready, Hoca? Now we can go with the whole fucking Georgia Guidestones. You want to know why?
Why?
Because no one's going to want to farm. And now the population's going to fucking suffer because and there's going to be mass starvation.
Well, I told you that's the fucking agenda, but you keep thinking that it's not the agenda. Why would they spend millions of dollars to make these stones in 8 different languages? This thing's like 263 tons these stones weigh. And you're saying, well,
you love the Georgia Guidestones. I love it.
Well,
you
you think that there's no credibility to the Georgia Guidestones. It's just some a bunch of practical jokesters that made these Georgia Guidestones. There are. What do you think? It's just cartoon bullshit. I mean, that it's
No, I'm not denying that, you know, what it says and shit. But yeah, maybe down the line, I'm hoping you'll be dead. Maybe not me, but you know, if they bring about this type of feudalism where you're on UBI and you're eating cricket tiki masala, cricket tiki masala. That's correct. Yes. Yeah, so the problem is that people are not going to really abide by these fucking draconian measures, and they're not going to want to be a sustainable farmer. The whole system's eventually going to collapse because you can't have collective farming. It just doesn't work. But I'm telling you, that is what is at play and what it is they actually want to bring about.
Okay, you believe that you're 100% right about everything you say? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like it when people talk in such absolutes, like they 100% know what's going to go down. Because I don't really believe that 100% of what you say is going to go down the way you say it.
Well, I'm feeling quite full of myself because I've been saying for the past 10 years that they want to bring about these smart cities, and they want to bring about these vertical gardens with commercial spaces in like San Francisco, LA, Chicago, and New York City. Two of my friends texted me today in a Forbes article that while the city has been empty, Amazon has been buying up commercial property in city centers. What is the plan with these commercial spaces in the cities? What is going to happen in the city?
Well, you say vertical gardens. How do you grow a garden vertically? What does that mean?
Skyscrapers, huge concrete skyscrapers with farms in them.
And how are you going to convert those over?
Well, it's really not that hard. You have to understand a commercial building versus a residential building is just sheetrock and fucking plaster and concrete. There's really not much in them. I mean, it's really not that hard to do it. And if you look at how much the Green New Deal cost, and if you look at the underpinnings of the Green New Deal, it's part and parcel of these type of things. Now, the other thing is with the commercial spaces, this goes with the security aspect and the military and the police, the paramilitary, what have you, is that now you can push a mass surveillance state on the populace by flying drones, more cameras, and then when you don't have a car, you're now walking, and now they can have more security looking while the people are walking around the cities, things like that.
So the redneck hillbilly that lives in the trailer is going to be forced to live in a city.
Yes, and now not only that, now if you look at what's going on in China, okay, the ghost cities, right? So in China, they have, let me take a look here. Let me read. Give me one moment. Ghost cities, 25. Give me one moment. 7 billion square meters of unfinished floor space is in China right now.
Nobody's done this vertical garden. Show me an example of where this vertical garden
just type in vertical garden into Google.
And they actually have
or you can type in lean urbanism. That's another really good one.
No, we're not even in the first stage process of it though. Nobody's actually made one happen in America yet.
Hey, listen, and we're only how many months in with COVID-19?
We're 8 months into it, yeah.
Right. We're still in the the fetus stage of this shit. You know what I mean? So it's still early in the ball game. We have to start looking.
You act like it's like you're not even afraid of this. Like you're just like talking about like it's like a random event that's not going to affect your life.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like accepting it. I've been really into this stuff for a long time, and when I first
are you sure you're not somebody trolling me and playing games with me?
No, why would I do that, dude?
Okay, I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, it's all right, man. Listen, we can. These are all theories and hypotheses, but I'm just going by what a lot of these policymakers and think tanks have thought of the past, since Agenda 21, since 1991, 1992. Right. So, just go by what it is they want and see if have they been stopped in any way, shape, or form. They have not been stopped. So what is a long-term game plan with all these type of things? I'm telling you what it is. Because they're not stopping. It's clear
Right.
as day. They're just not. They
Yeah.
just
Okay.
keeps going and going and going.
On a personal level, what got you into this? I mean, you seem to be so well versed in what you know. What made you obsessed with this issue, which 1% of the population is not well versed like you? Are you just one of those nerdy kind of guys that just
No, because you don't want to know it. Because I want a house. I want to get laid. I want to work a 9 to 5 job, and I want to be left the fuck alone. Right. So
you
now I
can't get
want to
any?
question. Right. So
Yeah,
now I want to question who's stopping me from letting me live my
right.
life.
Okay,
You know what I'm
let me
saying?
let's get into the get laid thing because or the what's keeping men what is the agenda for these people? How have they been so successful at keeping men and women divided? How is it like women here's what I believe. Women could my one of my siblings the other day I was talking to, this person said to me, the reason why dating isn't working today is guys would rather play video games. I said to this person, reverse that. Guys would rather have a girlfriend, but
And
because they
play
don't
video
have one,
games.
they have video games. So
Yeah.
how are they able to get all the women to literally just be so numb to romance? Like I remember growing up in the 1980s, girls like almost were like sexual. I mean, they were like turned on by a guy. They were sexually turned on. Like no woman is physically attracted to a man anymore, not like they were 30, 40 years ago.
Hmm.
So what's going on? What is happening today? What is keeping the sexes together in your opinion?
Keeping them together or keeping them separate?
Keeping them separate, I mean. What's keeping them separate?
Mostly just distracting hot chicks and young chicks from everything. Uh, yeah, keeping them distracted. Other than actually having sex. I mean, one thing is that I've taken away living in Asia and now coming back to the United States is
Hmm.
that women don't really want to have sex. I mean, if
Yeah.
they can get away with not putting out, they're gonna get away with not putting out. Period.
Well, I mean, like
So
you
if
go out in public, you go out to a public place, and it's like you're invisible. And don't say, "Well, you're pushing 50, Steve." No, I when I was 30, I started to notice this. It's kind of like what I've experienced in the last 25 years since the like mid 90s is that dating has just gotten progressively worse every year. Like that,
because women are totally distracted. That's
yeah,
really what it comes down to. You guys are
yeah,
chasing women, and they're like, wait, well, where's the pussy at? Where's the pussy at? Where's the pussy at? And women are like too busy on their phone. They're too busy going to school. They're too busy working. They're too busy doing X, Y, and Z, and they just have no time really to get to know the other.
right.
So that's kind of where you're at. And now with social media, it's now exacerbated all these type of problems. That's where kind of at this fever pitch, and basically the internet is having a fever, really, because
Right.
the internet is a fairly new phenomenon. The age of information is a fairly new phenomenon. Social media is only 10 years old. Okay, look what it's doing to our society. It's destroying it. And that's really where we're at. And when you have a bunch of hot little white chicks, twerking on TikTok, provided by the China, provided by China, this is what you get.
Right.
You're as a man, whether you identify as MGTOW, incel, whatever fucking manosphere subgroup you're in, you're competing against the fucking globe, and you're competing against an avatar, and you're competing against social media. Good fucking luck.
I mean, it's crazy because the future, here's the thing, smart cities, small cities, or whatever it is, there is no romance and sex in the future for these Orwellian societies are sexless societies. You realize that?
Yep.
There's no such thing as a man and a woman having intimate sexual intercourse in an Orwellian society. Now, why do you think they do that in Orwellian? Why does communism and Orwellianism seem to be all geared toward the sexes being so divided? Like in Russia, sexual intercourse between a man and a woman during the height of communism was like just a mechanical task to make a baby. That's all it was. And once you were done doing that, there was nothing. It was a cold. The Russian man and the Russian woman had a very cold relationship under communism.
And
That's
they
my
and they and they still do.
yeah. So what is it exactly that these governments cannot promote romance and sex? Why does it ultimately seem? Is it because you ultimately have to make a choice between serving the state or serving the family? Because there's something weird about that. Like romance and sex don't seem to be a part of communism. You can't have that. We don't want you having that. They probably under communism dictate that if you enjoy sex, you'll probably be treated. I mean, it's a very creepy system.
I can't really comment on. I actually haven't really studied the whole Russia having sex type of thing,
Well,
but
I can tell you that they under communism the birth rate was even lower than it. I mean, at the beginning of the 20th century, Russian women would have 6 to 8 kids, but by the time communism took over, they were lucky to have 2 kids.
hmm Well, they were experiencing high levels of stress because people were fucking dying left and right, and they were afraid of a fucking commissar breaking into their house and fucking sending them to a gulag. So that's kind of part and parcel why when you're living under that type of level of anxiety and stress, of course the birth rate's gonna fucking plummet, kind of like a behavioral sync type of scenario. But basically, they you can't, it's intangible, right? So this whole thing of a family unit and a bond, it's something that is intangible. And in the United States, they want everything to be tangible. That's why
Right.
you're basically equating money with value, right? So now a man's value is based on how much money he has, and that's why you get this perpetual Disney dream where it's all under the guise of having champagne on a beach in Santorini, and I'm gonna be on a yacht in Dubai, and it's gonna be wonderful. I'm gonna have avocado toast and brunch, and I'm just being a fucking thought and a fucking stupid white bitch. That's kind of where you're at. So if you can't provide champagne in Monte Carlo, you're just a fucking loser. And unfortunately, most men cannot provide those type of things. So women are heavily distracted on chasing those things that are a total fucking mirage because of our upbringing, thanks to Disney. And daddy's gonna buy you a fucking BMW, and then the mainstream media is pumping these idea that you can be a fucking astronaut and go out and twerk and do all these fucking things that are just not real. And in the long run, these women wind up being lonely, miserable, and having dogs lick peanut butter off their snatch.
You oversimplify it. I think that's a big component of what you just said. But I'm going to go back to my theory that I still think there are more horny scrotal sacs out there than vaginas. I mean,
Yeah, this of
there are
course,
way more
dude.
dudes out there. I mean, immigration policy heavily favors male immigration. These hajis, these pajates that are working in Silicon Valley, why don't they promote women? Why is it always they bring dudes into this country? It's all dudes. It's a sausage fest.
It's white genocide. I definitely believe in the whole white
It's a total
genocide fucking
sausage
thing.
fest, though. There's more dicks in this country than vaginas, at least when it comes down to mating and the age where it matters. It's
Right, and
I
then
think
then on top of it, how many women are actually interested in having sex? So now you even have now you even driving the numbers even further
yeah.
down
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
down the
yeah.
fucking line.
It's everything. This problem with TFL incel, it's multi-layered. It's not just one issue. It's multiple issues. You've got propaganda. You have racial imbalances that heavily favor women over men. As far as like there's more men, and then you have the TikTok and all this media shit. And every woman, did you ever notice that almost every girl that's average looking is like a mini celebrity today?
Yeah,
You literally
absolutely.
you're
Yep.
a woman who's on a scale of 6 to a 10 is basically basically a miniature celebrity. They're like celebrities.
She's average. She's a frump. She's
If
a
she's average,
five.
if
Yeah.
she's I mean, I see so many good looking guys walking on these college campuses that are holding hands with a girl with a real fat ass, and those really. Do you ever see those doofus skinny guys? Those guys that are like they're
Yeah,
like kind of these.
the twig arms.
Yeah, but they're decent looking guys, but they're like you would figure out that a guy like that could have dated somebody much better looking years ago, but they're like dating a fatty. I mean, there's these guys, it's so pathetic. it's absolutely pathetic what heterosexual men have become today.
They don't know how to say no.
Yeah, they
And
don't.
that's America in a nutshell. You don't know when to say no.
No.
You say no, that's a bad idea. No, drag time story hour is a bad idea. No one's saying no to this. And the reason why guys are not standing up and saying no is because they don't want to get fucking berated by a fucking white woman and risk their chances of not getting laid.
Right.
So
Sure.
you know, so like, that's why you see these fucking heifers, getting themselves like a guy that's like a 10, right? I mean, and that's very common. I see a lot of really good looking guys that are sleeping with fucking ogres. Like, what are you doing, man? Have
Well,
some fucking pride.
that's the norm now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the norm. I mean, a guy can't if a guy was going to date a girl that's an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, you might as well be a fucking multimillionaire. I don't think a girl that's a 9 or a 10. Years ago, you could find 9 or 10s in your local high school, but
Yes.
a 9 or a 10 now, they have their own social groups. It's like, where do you see these good looking women? I think good looking women almost divorce themselves from this contemporary society completely, because like you don't see really attractive women anymore. And if they are out there, they're like in their own world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they live in a fantasy world.
Well,
And
no, they don't live.
you're
I'm not talking some some when I say fantasy world, I'm talking they physically live in other places. They almost divorce themselves. They're able to, okay, a girl that's really attractive is more than likely not going to live in an apartment complex with a bunch of just average looking people. She's
Mhm.
probably going to be catapulted to an area that will allow her to live in an area even if she doesn't have the money. You follow me?
Yes. Yeah, hypergamy. Her hypergamy
Well,
floats,
let's see
as
if you
Paul
were really
Porteous likes to say.
think of like what if you magically could just become an attractive 22-year-old girl, like you were a 10 out of 10. What you probably would be doing, you'd be offered a job making really good money right away, off the
Hmm.
chart, even without a
Hmm.
college degree.
Yep.
You get to the top immediately, and then you would be able to afford to live way away from the people that would have been average looking, or you know what I'm saying. It kind of works in stages. Good looking people, their world is totally different.
Well, good-looking women, their world is totally
Yeah,
different.
I mean, good
Yeah.
looking women have a totally different reality.
Yeah,
But even
good-looking men, it doesn't really, it doesn't.
oh,
That's the thing I disagree with incel, is the whole look maxing thing. You could
no,
be
no, no,
a
no.
gorgeous-looking guy, and you ain't getting shit, dude. Sorry.
Well, you've proven it yourself that in the city of New York, you've got guys out there making 150,000 and or maybe making more than that, and they've got their own like expensive house or apartment, and they're still can't get any action. You know?
Well, my one of my girlfriends, not girlfriends meaning friends. I don't actually bang her. One day she said, "Send me a few pictures of yourself." And I'm like, "Why do you want pictures of me? What for?" She goes, "Just send me pictures." I'm like, "Okay." And I sent her a couple, headshots of myself. And then the following day, she sent me a bunch of pictures of random women. And she's like, she goes, "Oh, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? What do you think of this one?" And I'm like, "Oh, these are all pretty hot chicks." I'm like, "Why are you?" And she's like, "Would you date any of them?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd date some of those girls you've sent those headshots of. Oh, they seem pretty hot or whatever." Turns out that there's at least for her, there's a Facebook group of single women that all they do is exchange pictures of hot single guys, and they
Right.
want to know why these guys are single. So it's basically Tinder on Facebook, and it's kind of like a incel of women talking on Facebook of all these hot single guys and wondering why they're all single and such. So I thought that was
Why?
really
Wait. Why?
fascinating.
Who's all? Why the females are single or why the guys are single?
The guys are the girls are asking why the guys are single.
Oh, you mean they have no clue? Yeah, but that's stupid. Why would they be wondering when they're the ones doing the discriminating? You know?
Well, that's again, we're getting down the rabbit hole on why women are fucked up. You see what I'm saying? So
In
I
other
thought,
words, they have no clue why a guy is single, but at the same time, it's quite evident that they're doing all the women control they control the dating scene. I don't believe you can blame it on the Illuminati only. Women are the ones controlling access to the relationship. That's just that
Right.
simple.
So like here, again, like, okay, so the girls think I'm obviously good looking and such, and then they're asking, why am I single? Okay, and then so I'm going to assume my friend spoke on my behalf to these women on why I'm single. I have no idea what she said to them, but it's probably some fucking girl fucking code speak that guys aren't allowed to be privy to. The point of the matter is that these young women truly don't know what it is they want, and because everything's under the guise of social media and basically the image, where now the story is the image, so women don't actually care about what it is you're about and why you're in fact single. All they care about is the photo of you and what you bring to the table and what's behind you
Right.
in that photo.
Oh,
And that's
I
where
think
that's where I do agree with incel. I think they've hit the nail on the head regarding the whole social media aspect of things, why things are so distorted because of things like Tinder, Plenty of Fat, Match Group, eHarmony, what have you.
yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Plenty of Fish is now so strict now. When you go on Plenty of Fish, you have to be registered before you can search the personals. They don't even want you searching without identifying yourself.
Hmm.
And that was never the case before. In other
And
words,
when I first got back to the United States, I played around with Tinder. I'm like, oh right, I'm getting some good hits. Mind you, that's 3 years ago. Now, forget it, dude. I ain't getting shit on that thing.
like there is you realize like you can put your face on like on Plenty of Fish and go months without getting one response.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, mind you, most women aren't even on there anymore because it
Yeah.
becomes, I call it the Tinder and the rope-a-dope effect, where guys are just swiping right to everything imaginable. And girls
Mhm.
are, if they swipe right, everything's a match. So what do? All they do is swipe left now. And eventually they get bombarded with so many messages and so much fucking cock that they tend to just shut down and fucking delete the app altogether, and then they become somewhat of a regressive hermit with doggies and such, and they become like the wine cooler ant popping fucking Zoloft.
Wow. And then, of course, they can always blame men because one of my siblings seemed to think that men play video games too much. That's the problem.
See, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's never their fault.
Well, they were just quoting somebody else. Actually, this person in my family was quoting somebody else. He said, "Well, I heard so and so said it because guys would rather just play video games." That is the biggest line of crap. Guys would rather be getting laid. Guys would put the video games away if they could get some action,
Yep.
or if they
Yeah,
could
of
get.
course. I'd go out and fucking get a part-time job if I was getting laid. When I had a hot girlfriend and stuff, it kind of motivated me to do more things. I am disagreed with me. Fucking, he flipped out when I said that. I'm like, yeah, if I'm getting my dick sucked, maybe I'll get out there and be a little bit more risky. I'll take more risk. I'll quit my job and I'll demand a raise, or maybe I'll do something a little bit more extravagant or what have you. But if a guy's not getting laid, he becomes, he smokes pot, watches porn, and calls it a night. And they really, sex is a huge motivator to get guys to do certain things that they would never really want to do. In fact, going back to Southeast Asia, Vietnam is a prime example of a matriarchy where the women truly run that fucking country. And mind you, it's a communist country, fucking hardcore, worse than China. And during the Vietnam War, the men that live in the rural part, pretty much the whole country was fucking rural at that time. The guys just sat around, drank moonshine, gambled, chain smoked. They were just, a Vietnamese man is a brute. You do not want to fuck with a Vietnamese dude, all right? But when the Americans showed up, the women were like, oh shit, the fuck we gonna do? These guys are just fucking drunk all the time, fucking shooting each other and shit. Well, basically, they're like, okay, I'm gonna suck your fucking dick and swallow your load. Get the fuck out there and fight these Americans. And the men were like, you're gonna blow me and you're gonna swallow? I'll fucking go out there and blast that fucking GI right in his fucking face. And that was how these women were able to push these guys to get them to go and fucking act right, was through sex.
Well, I don't know if the men were. So what you're saying is that the women were holding out on the men before the Americans got there?
Yes.
Oh, they were. I didn't know that.
Well, to a point, not enough to the, not like in America, but in order to get these guys motivated, the women would actually put out and, and kind of redistribute the pussy to get the guys to go and fucking fight and
I don't know. Is
put
there
down
any
the alcohol.
documented? Is that just a theory, or is there any documented proof of that?
I lived there, man. I fucking learned a little bit about fucking Vietnam and how they fucking operate. It certainly is a matriarchy, and the guys act like lions. The guys just lay around, and the women do all the fucking work. But when there was an actual
Wait.
threat,
A matriarchy doesn't necessarily mean the women do all the work. It means that the women really control the show, because it's you're a matriarchy. I kind of consider America a matriarchy now. It's definitely not a patriarchy.
The problem with America is women are not. Here's the difference. The women are unhappy in America. Why are they unhappy? Because feminism has taught them to be a man, when what they should be doing is flexing and working their hypergamy to their benefit, which they do not do. Which, again, get the men to do your work. You don't have to work. Get the guys to do your work. Why are you going out and fucking, laying pavement and fucking, laying tar on a roof and shit? Well, maybe women in America aren't doing that, but you get what I'm saying, is that the women are now working 60 hours a week. You don't have to. Just start fucking sucking some dick, and the guy's gonna fucking do shit for you. I used to hook up with this one cougar, and she needed me to do a bunch of things around the house for her. And she was getting older, and she had a bad back, and
you already got me turned off right there. You were giving a cougar with a bad back help around the house.
Well, look, let me finish the story, right? So she wanted me to help her around the house. I'm like, okay, well, I want to fucking, I want to fuck you if you want me to do these things. Now, you're supposed to be my friend. You have to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, no. You want my time to help you around the house. Okay. You're not my mother. You're not my sister. You're not a relative. Okay. I want a blowjob, and I want you to put out. Okay. And eventually she caved, because she needed help around the house, because she didn't really want to do these things. So it's either you put out, or you're going to go and have to pay someone to do the things for you. Your choice. What would you rather do? Would you rather put out and, have a little bit of fun? Or would you rather, go out and find a contractor to do all these things for you? Mm-hmm. That's the point I'm trying to make. And that's why American women are fucking miserable, and they're just not flexing their hypergamy in the right manner. Instead, they throw a temper tantrum, and they don't want to take responsibility for their fucking actions, and then blame guys why they're so miserable.
The thing that bothers me, though, is, and if things could continue as normal without this new world order, I would say it would be entertaining to watch the next 20 to 30 years to see how men are just going to just make women miserable. But I think that the NWO is going to come crashing down so hard on both of us, it ain't going to matter. We're not going to live to see the fruits of our apathy. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of MGTOW men were hoping to see the time where women came back to the table and were crying their eyes out, but I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't.
I thought that for a long time, and I actually wrote about it, that I thought women that are in their late 30s will swing back and be like, okay, I'll put out.
I screwed up. I apologize for all, but I don't think that we're not going to see that happen. I don't think we'll see that happen.
I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen either.
Because we would already see the beginning of it already, and I don't see 47-year-old women saying, I screwed up. I'm willing to, apologize for my, but that, I don't see any indication that that's going to ever happen.
No, and because it's not going to happen, that's why you're seeing the societal collapse, which we are living through.
And I think this is what me and Bill Greathouse both agreed with. We think that the division of the sexes is the number one crux of New World Order. They had to break the sexes up before anything else. The breaking up the sexes is allowing this system to go to shit.
Mm. The reason why that's happening is because there's no external threats, and you don't need men to really do anything anymore. You don't need their manual labor, and because we live in kind of this transactionary type of economy where everything is kind of just, paper pushing, robot, AI type of shit going on. You don't really need men's strength as you used to. Going back to Vietnam or Cambodia or underdeveloped nations, you still need men because of tribalism, fighting, xenophobia, all those type of things. These things require men. Like Cambodia still needs men to do X, Y, and Z. Vietnam still requires men to do X, Y, and Z because there's an external threat at all given times. Versus America, where we never really had to face any type of external threat. I mean,
Right.
the war on terror was kind of this ambiguous bullshit that we fucking lapped up, saying that there's a Muslim in a cave in fucking Pakistan, so
Which
that's
was
where we
all
have to go.
bullshit. I
It
mean,
was all bullshit.
most people know 9/11 was an inside job. It was. It fucking
Right, but the point is that America really hasn't had it hasn't really been. Well, we are being invaded, but it's much more subtle, and you don't seem to notice it because it's incrementally happening. So if like Mexico decided to declare war on the United States, well, what are women going to do then? You see what I'm saying? They're going to turn and be like, guys, can you help us? And that would obviously rear women to start acting accordingly, that you actually need guys to get things done. And a lot of the infrastructure that's in place in the United States has been built by forerunners of America, silent generation, boomers to a certain extent. But a lot of the mudsill of the United States is being eroded because of basically the lack of male influence on the society at large.
Right. And you know what? Another thing I would say was really sad, and people don't see this. When you have a male child, he's almost guaranteed to be an incel today. A female child, if she's raised right, can basically marry a very successful guy. It would be impossible for a female coming of age, like going into teenage years to early 20s, to not be able to have the potential to find a guy that could support her. I mean, it doesn't have to be a rich guy. It could be just a decent guy that could work a job. But men are, I think almost all men today are, if you have a male child, it's almost guaranteed that that kid's probably going to be incel or involuntary celibate. He's going to be probably, there's no doubt he's going to be a much more miserable life.
I agree, but I'd still rather be a man than a woman.
I don't know about that. I think women have a much, psychologically, they have a much better life.
I could never, I would hate to be that fucking ignorant to the world at large and be that self-absorbed. It's kind of vomit inducing.
Would you not say that ignorance is bliss, though? They don't care.
Yeah, they don't. Let them eat cake. Go out there and protest with Black Lives Matter. Who's going to stop you, right?
Do you have any, are you going to delude yourself to believe that those white girls walking with the BLM are unhappy? They're so unhappy. They're very happy. They have a better life than your average. They have a much better life than your average white male. They have a way better life than they do.
Oh, well, yeah, there's no doubt about it. But if that continues to go, if we go down that path, that eventually those white girls will get purged, and you already see that coming to fruition, where the Black Lives Matter Antifa kind of that group, that leftist craziness, is already kind of like just purging whites, because the objective is to purge the white middle class. So
Yeah.
when a black gangbanger says, "Come here, white girl, I'm gonna hold you," she's like, "Oh my God, this is terrible." Well, you asked for it. You played with fire and you thought it was wonderful, and now you're in fucking trouble. So,
Well,
and
I haven't heard of any rapes yet going on at these BLM things. I mean,
I think in Minneapolis it happened, and I think in Seattle with that whole Chad fucking zone shit, they were kind of sexually assaulted or what have you. And really, that's the other
not
thing.
enough to make a difference, though. I mean,
No, of course not. Of course not.
Because you look at the streets, like there's several channels that are devoted strictly to the riots, this multi-screen riots, like in different cities at the same time. And you're watching the riots, and all these white girls are walking down the street like zombies. Nobody's raping them or harassing them. They seem like and they're walking through a war zone. I mean, they're literally standing in front of cops with tear gas, and like they're not afraid of anything. Like I've never seen a society of people that lacks fear at all. When
Well,
it comes
it's
down,
they feel invincible. It's omnipotent. They think that
yeah,
nothing bad will happen to them, and that again that circles back to the lack of external threats, and people are way too comfortable in this country. So if you think that's a good idea, and you think holding a firecracker in your hands is going to not affect you, well, it does. So that's really, again, the lack of external threats is
right,
obviously a major factor in these type of
right,
things. You have it too good. That's it. You
right.
have it. You still have it too good. White girl has it so good in the world that it's fucking vomit inducing, where she can treat the world like it's her own fucking extension of her living room. That is
Right.
crazy. You go to Cambodia and you start preaching feminism. The Cambodian women are looking at you like you have three fucking heads. Like, who does this white girl think she is, coming here and pissing and shitting on my fucking culture? Because it's a form of imperialism, and through the white girl, it spreads this whole feminist agenda across the fucking globe.
Right.
See what I'm saying? I saw it. Like they had this whole what the fuck was that play called? They had some type of feminist play while I was there, and the Cambodian women were just horrified by it, where all they did was talk about my pussy this, my pussy that, and the Khmer women were like, "What the fuck is this degenerate, disgusting shit?" And then a lot of the here's the other factor is that you think other races of women are happy with white women. They fucking hate them. Black women hate white women. Asian women hate white women. They hate them. They think they're
Right.
fucking deviant. You see what I'm saying? Like, they look at tattoos as like, you just covered your beautiful skin in fucking shit. What
Yeah,
is
but so
wrong with you?
black women, almost all black women now have tattoos too. Now they almost all do. I would
Yeah,
say most.
Obviously African American women,
Yeah,
but
African
here's the thing.
American women.
But here's the thing, right? Sipping something to drink here. You
Yeah, I
go in.
don't know too many black African American women that don't have tattoos. Almost all of them do now.
If you go to the New York City subway system at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you go to the ticket booth, well, it's not a white woman working behind the ticket booth. It's a black woman working behind the ticket booth. Why? Why is it her working behind the ticket booth? Because her hypergamy is not as strong as a white woman's, and you think that black woman working behind the ticket booth is not fully aware of that? You are dead wrong. She is fully aware of the situation. She is not ignorant towards what is happening. She's like, yep, it's me working behind the ticket booth, and it's not fucking Brittany from Kansas working behind this ticket booth. It's my black ass who's poor. So then that's really dangerous, because like that really fits the whole Black Lives Matter fucking narrative, where black women need to be empowered and what have you.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous situation. It's a cocktail of fucking of explosives at this point. And listen, I've stated my opinion on where these things are type of going. These are my theories. I'm not saying I'm
Yeah,
correct.
I think you're assuming that things are going to be okay, and then I'm assuming they're going to be worse. There could be a combination of both things, but these are just your theories.
Yeah, I mean that's just my take on the situation. Look, I've prepped. Most guys that probably are listening on to this recording have prepped also. Preparing for the worst and wishing for the best. And I think no matter what, in the coming months, it's either something's going to be happening really soon, really quick, or it's going to go back to this linear type of equation where we slowly keep declining, and we have to navigate the
I was
decline
hoping
properly.
it would be a slow. Well, I was praying that it would be a slow decline, be it like the dating scene would men would slowly drop out. But I don't think it's going to be linear. I think it's going to happen quick. I think these elites they're going to crash course this as quick as they can, because they've already done it with the COVID. if that isn't a crash course, I don't know what the fuck is.
Well, COVID could be, it could be just a kind of like a how do I put this?
It's a psyop. It's a big psyop. It's a bullshit
Not
psyop.
just a psyop. I'm trying to like not pressure test, stress test. It was like a stress test for the economy. Let's see if we can get away with fucking putting 30 to 40 million people
We're not,
on.
but a year from now, we're still going to be wearing these fucking masks. It's
That's
not
to
going to end.
humiliate you. That's just to humiliate the
It's not going to
population.
end. It's not going to end. They're just going to keep ramping it up. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And I have yet to meet a person that's died of COVID. Have you met a person that's died of COVID? I don't know anybody.
I know two people.
Okay, and give me the circumstances.
They,
Elderly
one,
people.
no, one was obese, and the other one was he OD'd on OxyContin
Okay, so why would you say the OxyContin one was COVID?
because he did OxyContin while he had coronavirus.
Okay, so he died of basically a drug overdose.
Right, exactly. So they reclassify as COVID. So if I ask
Okay,
how he
but
died, they're going to say it was
but
COVID.
that's just semantics. That doesn't tell me if that's really what
But they
happened.
had on the point I'm trying to make is they had underlying conditions. They didn't die of just COVID.
I know it's such it's a fraud. It really.
I know two people. I know three people that have had COVID, and that did recover. If that makes it any better for you, it's real. I mean, I'm not denying COVID not being real, but I think they've obviously embellished on a grand scale on its dangers and shit. And it was just a huge excuse to really just shut down and push this controlled demolition of the United States and Western European countries also. And now they can just play fucking games with us all they want. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You have to put the mask on and walk to your table and then take the mask off. It makes no sense. What is a cloth mask going to do? Are the masks even doing anything for you? And people and a lot of this goes back to baby boomer because who's the most susceptible to COVID? It's the baby boomer generation. And well, if you look at most of the politicians in the United States, they're all like over the age of 60. I mean, Trump is going to be, if he is elected for a second term, he will be the oldest United States president. And he's running against another guy in his fucking 70s. And you look at Dianne Feinstein, look at Nancy Pelosi, look at Chuck Schumer, look at all these fucking people running the United States government. They're all baby boomers. And a lot of these draconian measures do not affect them because they have pensions, they already have their houses paid off, they have their medical benefits, they have everything, and it doesn't really necessarily affect them.
And are they that fucking disconnected? I mean, does Nancy Pelosi know there's people out there suffering?
No, she has no idea.
Wow.
She's Zoom. She's doing a fucking live stream from her house with a $15,000 refrigerator and fucking like $40 a gallon of ice cream. She's totally disconnected. And when you again, I think I mentioned earlier in this recording that you have a ruling class that is so disconnected from the rest of the population. This is again a revolutionary type scenario because this happened in France during the French Revolution, where the elites of France were just totally disconnected from everyone else. What did Marie Antoinette say? Let them eat cake. Like a
Right.
fucking stupid thought. What a fucking French thought to say something like that. No wonder why you got your head lopped off, you dumb bitch.
Yeah. Let them eat cake. Why? Well, cake actually isn't that bad to eat, is it? I guess
Well,
it's.
I think it was in the vein. It's been a while since I read that story. I think the people are running out of bread, and
Oh, I
really nothing
see.
to eat. And she's, no, let them eat cake. I'm going to Disney World.
Yeah. How do they document that she said that? Who recorded her saying that? I mean, they obviously.
There's always. I don't know who documented that, but I can tell you during the Roman Empire, during the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, there was always someone there. Dio Cassius was his name. Dio Cassius was the basically the historian who hung around the emperor day in and day out and recorded everything that fucking happened during the Roman Empire for
So
like.
you really think that the dialogue is that translated that accurate?
Oh, at least with the Roman Empire, it certainly was. They took great pride in that shit, man. It was fucking amazing. Same thing with Nazi Germany. They fucking documented all that shit, man.
Yeah, the Germans were too. That's what hung them because they documented the deaths of every person they killed.
Hmm. Exactly. And then now, mind you, in the Soviet Union, they were like, yo, don't document any of this shit. That's why you don't get any report. There's barely any books on the gulags. I think there's like a Gulag Archipelago and the Within the Whirlwind. Those are the only two books I know of that documented the gulags
Did you
because
ever read? Did you ever read the Gulag Archipelago?
I have the audio book. I only really like the first volume. The rest of the volumes are pretty fucking boring, to be honest.
There's an abridged volume too. There's one big volume. I don't know if it's. I don't understand Alexander Solzhenitsyn. How was he able to chronicle that if he was in a gulag?
Again, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really have to sway an
I
opinion.
know that he was. I forget what year he was sent there. Was it in the 40s or the 50s or something like that? It was.
Yeah, I think in the 40s.
Yeah, but it was. Yeah, it was a horrible. Yeah, I'd have to. I got the book. I got the book at my house, but I know they had a series of volumes on that too.
Yeah, again, the Soviets did a good job on fucking, not keeping records on this
You
shit.
want to know the most documented subject of all time is the Civil War?